Welcome back to the channel. I'm Big Dog Brett. Today you're watching the voice of college football. We're going to be talking about the University of Oregon versus the University of Georgia in the season opener in just a few days. I'm going to give you all of the information I can in just a few minutes so that we can streamline what you guys are getting so you don't spend 30-40 minutes watching a video about a bunch of information you don't really need. So here is the breakdown. The Vegas line is somewhere around 18 points at the time of this video. It may go up, but it's definitely not going down. The University of Georgia is expected to have a dominant performance against Oregon, somewhere in the range of a 92% favorite, according to ESPN's predictor. There's a number of factors that are going to play a huge part into it, and here's what you're predominantly going to hear from the general public. Georgia lost 15 players to the NFL draft, and Jermaine Burton transferred over to Alabama. Stetson Bennett is not that great of a quarterback, and Georgia is in a reload year, so it's going to be difficult for them to compete with the Ducks. You're also going to hear from the Ducks that they just picked up Dan Lanning. He's a brand new head coach from University of Georgia. He's a defensive mastermind. You're going to hear that they also have Bo Nix, who's an experienced SEC quarterback. You're also going to hear that the Ducks are underrated because they had two bad performances at the end of last year, but that was predominantly due to injuries. So all of that information, for the most part, is true. Here's the big things that matter. The University of Georgia has reloaded very well because they have recruited very well. Georgia has outstanding talent at all defensive positions. We will give a slight edge to Oregon in their linebacker core, but pretty much everything else falls in the University of Georgia as far as having the advantage. Stetson Bennett was the number 3 rated highest QBR quarterback last year behind CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. The QBR rating difference between Bryce Young and Stetson Bennett was less than a point. So this should give you an idea of how good he is. A lot of Oregon fans are saying, or a lot of other fans of just teams in general are saying that Stetson Bennett was only successful because the defense helped him out so much. Even if the defense helped him out so much, having a high QBR is the marker for a quality quarterback, regardless of how many touches he gets. He does smart things with the football. That's not going away. Georgia did lose a lot, but Georgia's also returning a lot. Georgia has numerous players that are juniors and sophomores and seniors, guys that played a ton last year. Ask anybody who's watched a lot of Georgia games, and they will tell you Georgia rotates in and out. At the beginning of last year, nobody thought Georgia was going to have a generational defense, and there's no real reason to think that Georgia's defense is going to fall off so dramatically that they're not going to be able to compete well against Oregon. Georgia's defense, you could argue, was probably 1 or 2 in the country, no matter which conference you looked at. But if Georgia's defense was even to fall, let's just say it was 5th last year, and let's say Georgia only has a top 10 defense this year, I would compare that against the fact that Oregon really hasn't done well against even top 25 ranked defenses. When they beat Ohio State last year, which they love to brag about, that defense was ranked, the highest they were ranked at one time was 42, but I think most sites are saying somewhere around a 59 ranked defense. So not a quality high power defense like Georgia has. Also keep in mind that Georgia gained one of their coaches, their offensive coordinator. So Georgia, and not a lot of people are talking about this, Georgia has the offensive coordinator from the Ducks from last year. So he knows the personnel, he knows their play schemes, he knows what their tendencies are, and that is going to play a factor. That's a huge advantage for Georgia. The other big factor is that Georgia is going to be playing against Oregon in Atlanta. While Oregon may think that they travel well, I will point out that when the Georgia fan base travels exceptionally well, when Georgia went to the Rose Bowl, that was probably a 65-70% Georgia crowd. And when Georgia went to Notre Dame, it was at least 70 to 30% Georgia Notre Dame fans, respectively. They took over that stadium, and Georgia tends to do that, especially in high-profile games, being that the Georgia football fan base will swell so much in Athens that on any Saturday in the fall, they become the 3rd largest city in the state. Now you're placing that game in already the largest city in the state and the largest city in pretty much any of the surrounding states, with the exclusion of Miami, with the exclusion of some of the cities in Florida. So there's a huge fan base already here in the Atlanta metro area. You're going to see that just compound at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. There's a lot of factors that go into play into this. Georgia's used to playing in hot weather and playing in the heat. We're not sure how Oregon's going to fare with that. We know that Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp are defensive veteran head coach, mastermind player coaches. They know what they're doing. Dan Lanning, this is his first year as a SEC, excuse me, this is his first year as a head coach. While we know that Kirby Smart is extremely talented in the coaching position, so much that he is now the second highest paid coach of all time in college football. In his first year, which was as a head coach, which really wasn't that many years ago, he still went 8-5, and he inherited a really well-stocked team. Mark Richt had stocked that team with talent for the most part. Can't say that we see that kind of quality coming out of Oregon. There are talented football players in the Oregon fan base. Excuse me, not Oregon fan base, in the Oregon locker room, but it's not to the depth of which Georgia is. Bo Nix hasn't had a lot of time to develop chemistry with these running backs, with the wide receivers. They just don't have a lot of time, and it takes time to develop the timing. It takes time to develop that cohesion, that ability to know where and how a player's thinking to be able to get the ball to him in open space. Georgia has pretty much the most dynamic tight end room that there's ever been in college football history. Georgia lost 2 NFL running backs, and we're replacing them with probably 2 more NFL running backs, one which is currently out due to high ankle sprain and having surgery, I believe. But the other running backs that we have are going to be more than adequate. Oregon would probably get a nod as far as having the advantage for the offensive line, but Georgia's offensive line is very strong. Georgia's defensive line may be a little bit younger than it was last year, but they're still going to be very powerful. This is a game that may start out kind of close, but as the game progresses, Georgia is going to walk away with this game. Somewhere in the neighborhood of around the third quarter, you're going to start to see a separation strictly because Georgia is much deeper and more talented. If you go back and look at the recruiting bases, Georgia's pretty much had a number 1, number 2, or number 3 recruiting class ever since Kirby Smart got there. And I believe the highest that I have seen at Oregon is somewhere around 12. I may be mistaken. There may be an 8 in there somewhere, but the talent level is just not comparable. Georgia has recruited numerous 5-stars and 4-stars all over the field. I think Oregon has recruited something like 3 5-stars. Granted, not all 5-stars pan out, but the more 5-stars you have, the more likely they are to pan out at some point. That giving all of these things contributed into the factor of who is going to be a better coach team. Georgia has a better coaching staff, more tenured, more veteran, a head coach with a national championship. Who has the better quarterback? Stetson Bennett has never lost to Bo Nix. Bo Nix has never beat Georgia. Stetson Bennett, 3rd highest QBR last season of any quarterback in the country, a season in which Bo Nix played. Advantage Georgia. Running back room. Georgia has 2 veteran running backs that run extremely well and ran last year and will run this year. Advantage Georgia. Tight end room. Brock Bowers, Eric Gilbert, Darnell Washington, and Oscar Delp. These guys are absolutely animals. Eric Gilbert played at LSU. Eric Gilbert was the highest rating tight end ever since recruitings came out, and he's now at Georgia. We all know who Brock Bowers is. He's absolutely phenomenal. Georgia, the wide receiver position, has Adonai Mitchell, who scored or caught the game-winning pass against Alabama. Yes, Keely Ringo did run an interception, but without that, Georgia was still leading on the scoreboard. So Adonai Mitchell has great hands. Ladd McConkey has great hands, and both of these players have excellent chemistry with Stetson Bennett. Advantage Georgia. So when it really comes down to it, what kind of weapons do you have? We haven't even talked about Stetson Bennett being as elusive and as fast as he is. So he's very, very talented. Georgia's defense, some may think, is going to be the differentiating factor. Georgia's defense is still extremely talented. Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith are going to be names you're going to hear all season. And most likely, in my opinion, and many other people's opinion, Jalen Carter could be the number 1, the best player in college football this season. So Will Anderson, outstanding player, not going to take anything away from him. But I'm just telling you, that is the talk, but he's not playing in that game. So this game, that having been said, University of Georgia should walk away with this game. It shouldn't be close. I'm not going to give a score prediction, but I will tell you that by the time you get to the third quarter, you're going to have a very clear understanding that, in my opinion, the University of Georgia Bulldogs, this is not going to be a competitive game for long. It may start out like the Tennessee game did, where it looks a little close initially, and then Georgia's just going to wear them down and walk away with it. So, and that's the whole thing, the whole ball of wax. I may have missed one or two players here or there. There are some good players on the Oregon team, but I just don't think there's enough of them to compete with Georgia. So really appreciate you guys being here. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Join the Voice of College Football and all the channels that we have here at the Voice of College Football. And I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you guys in the comments. Have a great day. See you soon.